Turned it off.
You know what happens when you assume.
We'll call this meeting to order. At this time, it's my pleasure to administer the oath of office to our newest member, Penny Harrell. Penny, if you would, I'm going to ask you to stand and to repeat after me. I, Penny Harrell,
I, Penny Harrell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of director
the duties of the office of director
of the Clinton Utilities Board
of the Clinton Utility Board
of the City of Clinton, Tennessee,
of the City of Clinton, Tennessee,
which office I am about to assume,
as I am about to assume, sorry,
and that I will support
and that I will support
the constitutions of the United States
the constitutions of the United States
and the state of Tennessee,
and the state of Tennessee,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome. Now, what I'm going to do,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't remember that at all.
I
He had
told
Jim do
Jim, I
that
said
at
I
one break.
learned, okay? I'm going to let you sign right there. You have it.
He recited the whole thing, Penny, for Jim,
Well,
you know.
You know-
Yeah, and
God, I
Jim
tell you
said,
what, I am so glad that these guys all up here, they all love me so much, you know. But I did say it was unbelievable that you take a guy that that dispenses your drugs and you kind of stress them out. So I did break it down and thanks Jim for his understanding.
leave it up to an insurance guy to do that.
That's right. Leave it up to an insurance guy to do that. Okay, now we're moving on to item number 3, Mr. Madison, and that is our public comment session. And I'd like to see if you're interested in addressing the board, and if so, step forward.
Thank you. Harold, I saw where she was coming from Clinton City Council meeting. And, it's good to see you. I think we got a good board. I'm not here to drive tonight, I'm just here to ask for a request, actually. There's, we've got 2 poles up along our road on Alford Road. And, I think that's a great idea. Get them where they can work on them, get power outages, resolved quickly. But for cutting in, the way they cut it set now, I talked with, I think his name was Randy Kirby, of the engineering department here, and he's got a pole, and he's gonna cut 2 of my trees, or at least part of 2 of my trees. And it's a oak tree and a cedar tree. I've only got 3 good trees on the whole property, acre and a third. And those 2 trees I've got a high bank, and those 2 trees hold my bank. I hate to lose those trees, I'm losing a lot of yard. They're already, I don't even have any grass in that corner. And, I talked to him, he talked like they always go down the curve. Well, I've looked, and that's not always the case. He did sort of admit later, they tried to go to the outside. And he did allude to the fact that, we probably have to come up with another pole. So I was sure to request that maybe somebody else could look into that. Or at least since there's another way around cutting those trees. The canopy protects that bank. You can see where the bank's water. High bank gets over 2 feet, 8 to 10 feet, something like that. And if CUB could help me, I appreciate it. You know, once my bank starts washing away, it goes in the yard. And when you start cutting on trees, they don't last very long. And again, even the canopy is protecting that bank. So if you guys could give me some relief on that, I would sure appreciate it. I didn't know if Mr. Kirby would relay that to anybody at CUB. I don't even know if he's an engineer, licensed engineer.
He is a licensed professional
I
engineer.
know he's PE.
Ernie, we've looked at that, have we not?
Yes,
for
we
Mr.
have.
Madison?
We sure have.
And is there anything, because these are not on his property, they're on the right of way, is that right?
That's correct.
And is there lateral cutting that we can do?
Yes, I think he indicated, if I understood him right, that we were gonna cut both of those trees. I don't believe that's the case at all. I believe one of the trees is gonna get laterally pruned,
Would that help you, Mr. Madison? Sometimes that trunk goes up and the branches go out like this, and if we can cut the ones that are just gonna be leaning in to the lines, then you'll still have, you know, whatever's not doing that. Would that help you?
Well, that's part of the canopy, what's protecting that bank. And, looks to me like he's at that pole on that right side of where the pole's at anyway. And he just has to set a pole there and then go to that.
We really try to engineer best practices, and then we try to accommodate, even though they're not your trees, they're on the right of way, we try to accommodate the property owner. And if that would help you, you know, this lateral cutting, which is what we do for everyone, we've got some trees that go up and then they fan out like this because our line's going right through that, you know, which may help with some of that with the shade if you're talking about the canopy.
talking about the leaves protecting
So the old cut will be on the bank side is what you're saying,
Yes, that's where the one cut. That's where the water.
but you'd still have the protection on the upper side of the
Yes.
bank. Yeah.
But of course, that'd be, you know, mercy of the storms on the lower side, like I said. He did say, come out and step in, I had no say that it was right away.
Well, we never really like to phrase it that way, but the problem is we do have to set poles that makes sense, and what we're trying to do is get to the road. So we're really bringing poles from sometimes in places where they were set years ago in the back of folks' farm, and now as the development expands, you know, folks are not happy with them there. Nobody's happy with a pole anywhere that I know. I've got one right out in front of my house.
Well, I'll be glad to have a pole.
We would trim those trees, what we call lateral pruning those trees, in order to where we can provide you with good service should there be, you know, a storm event or things like that. It's those trees and limbs that hit into those lines. So,
I believe that, I'm sorry, Greg, I believe there's only one will be able to lateral trim.
And the other one will have
second
to
one
cut.
will have to be cut. And we have looked, and it is the best design, there's no question about it.
we'll be able to get to that with a bucket.
Yeah,
those
he
lines.
lives around a fairly sharp curve, and he lives on the outside of the curve, and it's where we need to be.
It looks like we'll be cutting one tree and trimming the other one.
Well, the engineer did say
You know, there's always ways to do things. There's always ways to do things. You know, so I would never say anything can't be done, because it can in this world. We're smart enough to get all of that done. But what we then do is we lay it out to what makes the most economical sense to our customers, and that meets the design of what we have to do. And then we pretty much go with that, because everybody would like to adjust something somewhere. And where we can work with them, we do, and where it doesn't make financial sense to do that, if we were on your property, it would be different. But because we're not, you know, we'll be able to trim one of those trees and we're going to take the other one.
Mr. McBride sort of said in the Clinton City Council meeting that they resolved the one on, was it Clockhouse Valley Road? That one came in and had an issue.
And we cut those trees.
The tree still got cut.
Like CEB did everything to accommodate
We did.
that. But Mr. Kirby said the only way they did that was because he gave an easement,
Well,
and I have no easement.
You do have an easement across the front of your property. It's 15 feet inside of the right-of-way
But
on your property.
But the guy on Clockhouse Valley Road
no, sir.
that's what the
No.
Mr. Kirby.
Well, of course, Mr. Kirby's not here, but I'm telling you, this board is intimately familiar with the Beatty property, which is what you're making reference to.
That was what I heard.
And all of those trees were cut. And we understand that not only they were very satisfied and happy with that.
That's my understanding.
We tried to work with them on the wood, you know, because they were cedar trees, and apparently his neighbor could use some of that wood. So it's not like we're just trying to level anybody's desires or wishes. As much as we can work with them, we would. Because if we weren't working with you, we would cut 2 trees, not just one.
Unexpected, the worst case.
Well, you would never get that from us. We wouldn't get the worst
No,
case
sir.
scenario from us. You know, you'd get the best case scenario. And the best case scenario in this case is that we can trim one tree and we'll have to cut the other one instead of just going in there without any talk to you at all and just taking them both down. Since you have a desire to keep a tree, then we'll do what we can to laterally prune that tree so you can keep it. But the other one apparently is right in the line and it won't work that way.
I believe you used the phrase retribution to Mr. Kirby. That's what he conveyed to me. If we were into retribution, you know, we would be setting poles on your property, which you have an easement, a permanent easement that you've given. You didn't, but the prior developer did, and we would be putting guy wires all back in your yard.
We wouldn't do that.
So there is no retribution at all,
I
none.
did that, many years ago. On the corner, they came in and put power across the road, and they put in the guy wires there, and they actually had two guy wires instead of the one bisecting for the force that went across the road.
We engineer everything to what makes the most sense, and it's safety by the code. We have to do that. These are practices that anybody would follow, and then we lay it out there. We're much more comfortable when we're on the road because that's a standard thing. You know, mostly all utilities, so they can get buckets to it. It's all about power restoration. It's all about patrolling the lines during an outage. You're not walking through people's backyards and things like that. So as we made a decision years ago, I remember in my office, Ernie, we sat in there and we said, as much as we can, as we upgrade these lines, we're going to move everything we can to the road right of way because it minimizes the negative impact on everybody that's involved.
Well, there's also a right way on this side.
Yes, sir.
But it's on the wrong side of the road, Mr.
For-
Matz.
For the engineering of the line.
Even if we put the main line on the other side of the road, we would still have to put overhead guys and poles and anchors on your side of the road to hold that line as it curved through there. And that's why it's best practice to put the line on the outside, not the inside.
I've seen a lot of similar situations. It follows the same thought.
Well,
I don't know what you
everything
mean.
that we design, everything since 1999, when I took over manager, nothing that we would do wouldn't make sense to do, and how we do it as far as engineer what we do.
I've seen houses with privacy fences up, they go to this.
There have been things that would curl my hair that were done back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. But since 1999, you know, we're not making those kind of adjustments. If we're on somebody's property and we're trying to get through and we need a pole to serve somebody else, as much as we can to accommodate whatever that they want in order, when we put that pole on their property, we're going to try to do as much as we can. If we can't please them, because shifting a pole a few feet here and a few feet there and the driveway's here and we're going to put a pool house over there, we're going to do that. If we can't do that, we're obligated then to condemn that property in order to get service to these folks right here. And that, we haven't condemned, have we ever condemned? I don't think we've, maybe one anchor
For the,
in,
here on the highway, one
in
time.
37 years, one anchor. Not a pole, an anchor. That's because we were able to work it out with everybody else.
Get too old to work the bank.
Weed eat it and things like that, you know. If
I mean, hold
it
just keep it from washing away.
could a tree help you? I mean, we could get you. I mean, it would take a while for that to grow, but
I don't think it'll help it. Once that tree goes, I think that might work.
Can you put some sort of, can you get with a landscaper, put some sort of covering over it, some sort of sprucey, I mean, I don't know, I've got a couple of places at my place that are sloped. It's almost cedary looking, I don't know what it is, but it's ground cover to kind of hold the bank. I mean, it may not be a tree per se, but there's got to be something that can be put there.
I don't know, Mr. McBride.
We have very steep banks at our house, behind our house, and it's covered with monkey grass. And we've never had any kind of erosion problem, you know, with the bank back there. So something like that would certainly be helpful.
And we've got English ivy at my house, and I give you all of that you want to take. So you don't put that out there because it's like kudzu. You know, you never
Especially
get
say
rid of it.
once it
You
gets
saw
old,
that.
baby,
I'm
is it
telling you,
going?
it takes trees and everything, that stuff.
Live on top of a hill, Earl, and I get a lot.
Yeah, I do, so do I.
And you can look at my bank. I hate to get out there and level it.
If you, there's different kinds of monkey grass. There's a variegated kind that goes under the ground and shoots back up, and it spreads like wildfire. If you can get something like that, that would certainly, I think, solve your problem.
I was just here to request some,
We can help you with that one tree.
I don't know how that would help.
You want us to cut it? Because we can do that too.
No, I do not want.
Okay.
Also on the list, we have Mr. Quarles,
No comment.
Mr. Wagoner. All right. At this time then, that'll close our public comment session, and we'll move on to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And as is our fashion, I'll kind of tell Ms. Harrell here kind of how we do it. I usually just kind of sit and because we do have the packets in advance, I basically tell everyone, and you'll see that I'm following hopefully true on all of this, that I kind of say we've all had the opportunity to review the minutes of our prior meeting. And at this time, I ask for any additions and/or corrections. And after a few moments, if I do not hear any, I ask for a motion for their approval along with a second.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign. Let's move on then to item number 5, which is the approval of the vouchers. Again, we've had the opportunity to review for both the electric and the water department. Are there, pardon me, any questions in regard to those vouchers? If there are not, then I will ask for a motion and a second for their approval.
Move we approve the vouchers.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign. Let's move on to item number 6. And at this time, we're going to call on Mr. Fagan to review the monthly reports for the month of January.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of you, I have the revenue and expense summary for January 2016 up. If you look at January, the month of January, we had a net income in the electric of $20,328. I was hoping for more than that, but our margin for sales less power cost was down from last year about $70,000. So that impacted that. We had less money to work with. If you look over here at this actual year to date, the difference right here, and to help Penny a little bit, when you see a negative number, that's a bad thing. When you see a positive number, that's a good thing usually. So if you see right here, our sales for the year are about 1.5 million less than the forecast, but in turn the power cost is less than it's forecasted to. And that difference, though, is about $114,000 negative number. You see our operating and maintenance expense is about 114 down also. That is, a lot of that is, we had some sub painting that we had scheduled for last year at 110,000, and that fell into this year, it rolled into this year. And the other thing is our in lieu of taxes are about 54,000 ahead of what we anticipated. And that's what we're paying the city in the counties in lieu of tax. So those two items are the bulk of that number. You add that 114 along with the 114 less than you had in sales minus your power cost margin, and you get right at that 224,000 that you're behind the forecast. nothing to be alarmed about. It's just the way it is. It was just a mild December, and I don't think we're going to recover from it the way it looks. Not based on the weather this week, you know. So
Not on air conditioning.
if you go to the water and sewer, they had a monthly income of $8,900. That's always a good thing when you're dealing with the water and sewer. There's been times where we just struggled to get in the black. So that's a good thing. If you look at our forecast, the water department is about 2,000 ahead. The sewer is about 64,000 ahead. A lot of that's where we had an ACWA. We had a contract where we billed them for certain things, and we got that all caught up, and that was about 50,000 of that. But sewer sales are up in also. Our expenses are about 20,000 under. I had a lot less sludge removal to date than we did in prior years. I don't know if that's going to hold or not. Dan's not here to ask that question. But the big thing is I've talked about every month is these capital contributions, and to help Penny a little bit, capital contributions is where an individual pays tap fees or something. Your line put in a new pump station. They need a new pump station out there at their plant. That was $49,000. They paid us for that, so that's $49,000 of that. We weren't expecting that. That was just here you go. It improves our system, but we have to pay for it too. But that's what hits there. The other big thing is we had this apartment complex come in up here by the high school, and they had to pay a lot of sewer tap fees. That's about $33,000. Wasn't expecting that either when I did the forecast, but that's a good thing too. So the water and sewer department is $172,000 ahead of the forecast. Now after that, Penny, we have these individual statements we talked about. I don't generally go into those unless you have a question, you know. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
And what we normally do at this point is kind of ask if there are any questions, and if there's anything off of like the balance sheets, that's the time that we review that. Those would be answered by one of our staff, depending on the particular question that it might happen to be. Okay. Any questions on the monthly reports? If not, again, we ask for a motion and a second for their approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? By like sign. Let's move on to item number 7. That's our project status report and the electric. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a healthy list of projects there in front of you that we're tracking. All of these are projects that have appeared in your budget, your capital outlay for the year. And as you know, we have a multitude of other projects that are in progress as well. These are just those that we highlight for you. Eagle Bend here behind the J.C. Park and down to the overpass, that's phase 1. That is now complete. That will move to your closing report for final cost accumulation. The substation work over in Claxton is going well. It's been hindered by weather, a lot of mud and a lot of rain in the ditches, but we finally broke through here with some nice weather, and it dried things out, and we got our pad established today and compacted, so we've really made some progress over the last, this week. Blockhouse Valley, about 70% complete. We're almost to the end of the valley and about to start on the Emory Road section of that line. It's going very well. It's right on schedule. The Bad Poles, that is a Service Electric Company. They're about 40% complete with changing out 209 bad poles for this year. And the aerial cable line up Island Ford Road, we've just started. We do have all the right-of-way cleared except for basically in front of Mr. Madison's property. All the other right-of-way has been cleared, disposed of, worked out fine. Construction on that is underway from the bottom of Island Ford Road towards the top, and that work's being done by our own forces. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
questions?
Eagle Bend is finished, but hasn't closed out, I assume yet.
That's correct. It'll move to Dudley's accounting report for final costing.
You have any idea what's remaining to be?
I'm anticipating that to come in under. We were pretty fortunate with the estimates that Ken and Rodney and myself had come up with on rock. So I'm going to be surprised if we're not under on that. I think we've ended up in very good shape.
Any other questions? Let's move on then to water and sewer. Mr. Fay, I understand you're pinch hitting for Mr. Hawkins.
I am. He is at a meeting, and he has to get his education credits to maintain his PE, and that's essentially what he's doing now. This project on Greenwood Drive is about 35% complete. Remember, the developer had almost $15,000 that he made a contribution towards this project. It's all progressing well. It ought to be finished by the end of this month, and except for that overlay, and they need to be assured that the weather is going to cooperate before they put that asphalt down. So that may take a little longer than that, but whatever Roger's schedules on that is fine with us. And then I understand they crunched a mailbox. Had somebody call in, and they're going to get a new mailbox out of that. So other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Is that connecting old Greenwood to the new Greenwood? Is that?
I
pretty
think
much
that's the
all?
line that we're just extending the sewer there in order, because that's in part of that development.
Yeah, I can see where some houses had been, one had been built already. It looks like they're ready to start on a second lot.
Right, and then
of
we've
course-
got to push the public sewer up there so they can then bring their service line down to connect into that.
And he only had to pay $15,000 for that for us, or,
15,000, that's right.
but it's gonna cost 82 roughly?
It's going to cost 82. That's the work order for that. Because since we're working on that line, there are enhancements that we can do to that line that benefit us. The only time we charge a developer anything is when it's for the benefit to them. And we're going to since we're working on that line, we're going to redo that. And then when we get up to the point where we've got to extend it to him, then he'll pay for that. It makes a whole lot more sense when you're going to get a contractor to do work that you look at the whole leg that's associated with that, and which is what we do. And we need to improve that line in order to. It wouldn't have made sense just to put a new extension on that to that line for the contractor, or even for us to do that. It cost-wise, it made more sense to look at that whole piece in there, and that's what we're doing. So the cost advantage to the developer was almost $15,000.
I guess Hillcrest comes to my mind. We've moved that line at a total cost to the property owner, but yet here.
Because there was no benefit. There was
To
no.
CUD.
To CUD, that's right. It was only to benefit that request that line be moved.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand,
Sure.
Those lots there are gonna benefit because they can connect to the sewer.
And that's why he has to pay, because that, and I don't have the plat in front of me, but that line, that extension of the line, that costs $15,000 to make that to where he's going to be able to use that for that development. Then everything else, we look at everything that needs to be improved, and that improvement is all at our benefit, not at the developer's benefit. Because if he hadn't done anything, so we'd have to go back and improve that.
Yeah, and again, I'll use Galloway over in South Clinton, where he was trying to make a connection and what he had to go through and cost-wise to get to the sewer, and it was all on him, even though, yeah. Again, I'm just trying to process through my mind how.
Well, you
each
can
one of them
essentially
is looking.
say that for this developer, it cost $15,000 to get to us.
Okay.
Now, when we designed the project, we look
Past
at,
that, yeah.
at everything that's gonna make sense while we're down there, and we have a contractor on site, which is the setup and everything else. Is there anything else that we need to do while he's there, which makes good sense?
Okay.
And that's what made good sense.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Not having reviewed those, let's move on to item number 8. That is work order number 316. Greg, do you want to speak to that?
Well, have our HVAC system, and Ernie's been working on that, and he helped design
Wasn't sure if you did or
the
you
specs
want
for
Ernie
that.
to speak
No,
to it.
he is, go ahead. It's just been, because it frustrates me that every time you turn around, we have a dinosaur system. That's all they ever say. Oh, that we don't even make them parts for that anymore. Oh, that thing's gotta get replaced. And if you're here long enough, you remember when they just replaced it. And it just didn't seem that long ago.
I was gonna ask, how, it couldn't be that old,
This is not for the new building. This is for
It's
this.
for this building here.
This was built in '79, and then we had a revision, so how many years do we think that is out there?
There's two big parts to this. There's the air handler unit that sits inside, and there's the condenser, the big outdoor unit out on the pad. We have had to replace that condenser before, and that was when Dennis was sick, so it's about 99. But we have not replaced the air handler. So we were able to match the coil in the condenser that we replaced in 99 to the indoor unit. When we budgeted for this, realizing that our contractors are telling us that, as Greg said, we can't get parts anymore, yada, 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 this thing's on its last legs. In fact, it feels warm in here tonight to me, but
We're sending a message.
be all that as it may, we estimated to replace the condenser, and again, I'm an electrical guy and not the mechanical guy. I didn't realize how important it was to match the coils. We got a consult on this from the folks that know a lot more about it than I do, because we thought, hey, after all this time, let's be sure we're spending smart money here and doing what we need to do. And the results of that were that you've got this 1979 air handler that there is no more coil match, and it is so inefficient. When we do this, you need to get a matched unit, condenser, air handler, get your efficiency out of it and replace them both. And that's what we're recommending, which is what our consultant recommended. And that's what has driven the price to close to $100,000 instead of the 75, I believe, if you looked in your budget, because I didn't have the air handler in that 18 months ago when we came up with this capital
So
outlay.
the air handler's 35 years old, and now we're replacing that. And we can't replace that unless we match the coil. And the last time we replaced the coil, we think was in the late 90s, 98, 99.
Now, to save money, to save every penny we could, we are doing all we can. And in this particular case, that is, we're doing the electrical work, the electrical renovations for the new circuitry for these two units, as well as we handled all the procurement and the bid opening stuff if you looked at the specifications that were in your little book. So we did save some money doing that as well.
Well, if you've got 27 years out of some of the componentry, I guess we would have to say we've gotten our money.
35 out of that air handler.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, that's right.
But
My
we paid
math-
$750,000 for the whole building. Which included the air conditioning at the time. And now it's $100,000, right at $100,000 to replace something that it didn't seem that long ago, You know, I mean, I remember Ivan out there and that one boy that got shot all the way back to the
Oh, gosh.
the fence because he got in to fix it. You remember that, Dudley? He apparently crossed something up, and he's not an electrical man either. You know?
Put his back against the
he,
wall.
he
I think.
absolutely flew back. I was out there.
Well,
when
you
it
know,
happened. Didn't
I
seem that
guess,
far.
I guess we can kind of go on how that, from an economic standpoint, you know, now we're paying probably 3 times for a vehicle what our parents paid for a house. So,
I'd say
you
that's
know,
true.
3 or 4 times. So, you know, I hate to say it, everything is,
But this brings
Crazy.
this brings everything up as far as HVAC, because the new building is fairly new.
Yes.
And then this is the only other component. So
That's
now,
right.
so now
That's
both,
right.
both
There
are.
there are a few rooftop units back in the addition when we built in the early 90s for Dudley's Wing back there that were just so far away from the central air, we couldn't push it that far. But
That's
yes,
standard heat pump
Big-
stuff,
big
though.
stuff,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is the big.
stuff.
This is the big stuff.
Well, I make a motion to approve work order number 316.
do we have a second?
I'll second, since I just went through this at the house.
Any other questions and or comments
To do at 3 years,
prior to the vote?
each one of them.
If not, all those in favor of approval of work order 316, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Now we're going to item number 9, which is the construction contract for Schaffner Kalthoff Mechanical and Electrical Service. And of course, this ties in with 316. Do we have any questions in regard to that? 76,500 is the, so to speak, the
So the difference
subsection of that.
is what, the difference of those two,
Electrical and-
the difference of those two numbers is what we're saving by doing it in-house.
Also, we've got a contingency in there,
I
which
mean,
we put in
and I know
everything.
not
Yeah.
saving, but
that's correct.
it's still costing our employees,
Yes.
CUB employees to do it, but that's the reason it's not the full amount.
That's right.
Okay.
Think
Well, I'll make-
everybody heard Mr. McBride's comments and question there. Any others? If not, I would ask for a motion. I would ask for a second for the approval of the contract with the mechanical engineering, or electrical service, rather.
So moved.
We have a motion second. All
We're into
those
this
in favor
contract
say
pretty
aye.
deep, didn't you?
We started it.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, let's move on to item number 10 then, which is the review of the nonprofit request. Mr. Fay?
We've got a request from the city of Clinton on their 4th of July celebration. We have an opportunity to advertise in that literature, which I assume that they'll do. We contributed towards that advertisement last year, $250, and I recommend it without, unless I see someone that's opposed to that, it's my intention to meet that same $250 mark again this year. The city of Norris, we received a request from the city of Norris. They've got the Norris Little Theater, and this is through the city. And we have an opportunity to advertise for this special play that they're putting on. It's the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and that is through the city. And the city has asked us to make a contribution towards advertising in that. And unless I hear objection, I'm going to meet that with a $100 ad in their playbook or whatever it is they're going to have. We received a request from a group, KeepAndersonCountyBeautiful.org. To the best of my understanding, they're not associated with the government entity, but they are a 501c. This would be a new donation, and unless someone knows more than I do about it, I don't plan to make any contribution towards that at all. Adding something new to an organization I don't know
Do you know what the contribution's for exactly?
Well, it's to keep Anderson County beautiful. It says we're local corporations, important connections to Anderson County, asking them to be corporate sponsors for the event. It's $500 up to $20,000. So it's an offset. We will offer beautification grants to local schools, youth organizations, community volunteers who are working to improve the areas in Anderson County. Generally, we would be more laser focused on the individual organization if the school was looking to do a project, or the city was looking to do a project, we would be much more open to spending ratepayer money to advertise in that kind of a environment. All right. We did receive a thank you letter from Clinton High School robotics team. If you remember, we advertised with them last month, and they were very appreciative of that through the Clinton High School. That's all I have for nonprofit requests, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then let's move on to item 11, which is other business.
Yes, sir. CUB was recognized by the Arbor Day Foundation and has named CUB a 2016 Tree Line USA Utility. CUB has earned this recognition for 15 straight years. As you know, CUB is committed to high standards for quality tree care and worker training and best tree care practices. So I think it's an important recognition. If you remember, in the state, the city of Norris was the first tree line city in the state, and we do Arbor Day celebrations with them, and we've got a very good relationship with them over that, and we really appreciate that, and we're proud that this notification and mention is also made in the New York paper. So, I mean, at the time we got in it, I think there were only 5 in the state that were recognized as tree line utilities. Ernie and his crew have got a lot to do with all of that. We've got an arborist on staff here, as you know, which many do not, certified arborist. Then yesterday, I returned from Washington, D.C., and I represented our region at the TVPPA annual legislative rally up there. I was proud to accept the request that I lead the delegation to Congresswoman Blackburn's staff, which detailed our concerns and highlight the issues that we're facing in the valley, along with separate meetings with both Senators Alexander and Corker. I also met with Congressman Flashman's group. And while I continue to voice opposition to the divestiture of TVA, along with other issues, I also pressed them on not lifting the tax-exempt status for municipal bonds. This affects everyone in this room, obviously, and affects everyone in our county. Our ability to get low-cost bonds promotes capital projects throughout the city and the county, and also impacts our rates, which affects our economic development. So, also in that, I continue to caution them about the impact of these regulations, these CO regulations that they've got, TVA is trying to face, in order to meet those output, which is part of the EPA group, these guidelines that they're trying to impose on the utilities. If they impose that on TVA, it would be substantial, as much as I've heard numbers as high as 40% rate increase in order to meet those. And obviously what they would do is they would pass them on right to us. And any citizen that's worth anything needs to be concerned about the environment. I think we need to take that very seriously. But there's a cost benefit to all of that, and the benefit from having those restrictions, it's marginal at best, So there are new technologies that are coming into play. These scrubbers that TVA has put in can certainly help with all of that, and they have helped with that. So we just press the fact that we need to consider the the economics of some of these potential regulations that they're trying to impose on the states, when it certainly would affect TVA, which certainly would affect us, and certainly would affect our ability to be competitive economically. So those are the things that I did while I was in D.C. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir. All right, at this particular time, I'm gonna start down at the end. Mr. McBride, any comments?
No, sir.
Mr. Price? Ms. Harrell?
No.
Mr. Val?
No, sir.
I have none. We stand adjourned.
Do on that, call you and come over here sometime.
I'm going back to.
You gotta run in the
Well, yeah, I am, and I'm kinda